Welcome to Morning Line. I am Amanda Hara filling in for Nick Barris this morning. He's, I believe, on vacation. And today's topic is the breed of pit bulls. On Monday, we did a pretty interesting story out of Springfield, which of course is in Robertson County, and some strict rules that they have regarding the breed there. And before we start the show, we want to go ahead and get folks up to date on the actual topic today and what exactly we're going to be talking about. So take a look at the story that we ran on Monday.
Curls on your lap. He's great with the kids. He's actually their pillow.
If the ordinance passes, Emily McFadden would be one of those people paying up. Is she happy about already having to register Blue, provide pictures to the city, and update his address if they move? No, but it's something she says she's willing to accept.
I understand the need right now because there are people who fight them, and I hate that for it because it ruins the breed.
What McFadden is not happy about are recent comments made by City Manager Paul Nutting.
I'm just very much surprised at the number of young parents who come in with toddlers and are keeping one or two pit bulls in the house at the same time.
McFadden happens to be one of those people.
My baby's usually in the swing, and he will go and give him a kiss every morning as he walks through. I trust him completely with my children.
She's raising 4 small children who live side by side with Blue without any problems.
And it makes me very nervous that the city I'm living in, who decides what to do with my pet, is making comments about how I'm a horrible parent because I have toddlers and own a pit bull.
City Manager Paul Nutting says the new ordinance would add a $50 registration fee to any pit bulls coming into Springfield.
Once the dogs are registered, we have to go out and check the location with animal control, and then we have to periodically inspect the locations. And of course, when they come in, they have to register with the city recorder. So we have the time involved in that. So it's basically recovering city expenses just to administer this program.
I don't have a problem paying the $50 fee to keep him. He's family.
But she does have a problem with what she calls misconceptions about the breed.
I want them to understand it's not the breed. It's the owner.
Emily McFadden says that she'd like the city to conduct temperament testing so that pit bulls with good temperaments can be allowed to run in fenced yards and not forced to wear muzzles. She says she doesn't see that happening anytime soon, so she'll probably move outside the city to give her family and her dog a better life. Amanda Hara, News Channel 5 HD. All right, and of course that is a story that we ran on Monday, and what basically we were talking about is a new ordinance that's being proposed in Springfield that would basically charge anyone who owns a pit bull about $50 to register the dog. They've already got to register the dog. They've already got to put up signs, be aware of dog signs on their property. They've got to send pictures into the city of the animal. They've got to notify the city if they change their address of the animal. So already a lot in place there in terms of rules. But today we're going to talk with Ronnie Van Zant. He is the founder of Pit Bull Awareness of Tennessee, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how he feels about these new regulations that seem to be popping up pretty much all over the mid-state.
Yeah, breed-specific legislation, which Springfield and Paul Nutting and James Hubbard are trying to put in place in Springfield, is what normally people consider this as is breed discriminatory legislation because it's focusing on a certain type of breed of dog, but all dogs bite. And one very important thing I like to tell people also, pit bulls are very friendly. They originally were bred to fight, but through evolution with the dogs and being brought into the country, they've actually been bred and that issue has been fixed. There are some dogs, pit bulls especially, that have aggression towards other dogs, but naturally. Other dogs are territorial as well, and so are pit bulls. But they are very loyal and caring and loving towards their human owners. There's never been an issue of a puppy being brought up and it inherently having human aggression.
Mm-hmm. And we just saw City Manager Paul Nutting in that story, and he of course is backing this new ordinance that he says is likely to pass in Springfield. But one of the things that you didn't see him talking about on camera was his concern over the breed biting and then not letting go. And I think there's a big misconception that there's some physiological trait that disallows the animal from letting go after they bite, which according to Wikipedia and some other sources, is false.
It's completely untrue and scientifically unproven. The mouth and the jaw of a pit bull are the exact same as any other dog. It's just shaped differently. And another thing that also brings up is the jaws on a pit bull. They do not lock, and also people say that their bite pressure per inch is higher than any other dog and most wild animals is not true as well. They are actually rated one of the lowest bite pressure pounds per inch biter, and so they're actually very safe dogs. The people that say that they have locking jaws are people who get bit who are actually, when the pit bulls are left unattended with small animals, small children, that they're not able to defend themselves.
Have you done any research on any other breeds and how they measure up to pit bulls in terms of attacks and maybe fatalities?
Actually, one of the most surprising things that people don't know is the AKC actually has reports out all the time, the American Kennel Club, and they have a report recently from 2010 that shows the top 5 breeds in the country currently, and the trend
For dog bites.
For dog bites, and also the top popular dogs that people buy. Usually, as has followed, except 2 years out of the last 10 years, every year the most popular dog is usually the one that has the most bites because more people are getting them. And right now, currently, actually in 2010, it's probably going to follow this year as well. The pit bull has a lower bite rate than a golden retriever, which is one of the most popular dogs right now. So it's actually, it just depends on what the most popular dog is.
So it's all relative.
Yeah.
I mean, the more dogs that are out there of one breed, the more bites are going to come
Right.
up. Okay. That's kind of interesting, though, that the study showed that even still, golden retrievers are biting more than pit bulls.
Yeah, but all dogs bite. I mean, that's what people have to understand. It's not just pit bulls. It's the history of the pit bull that people look at, and they look at the media. And the stories that you see on media usually aren't good towards pit bulls. It's always a pit bull has attacked somebody. A pit bull has killed an animal. A pit bull has mauled a child or an elderly person. You don't hear about the good stories that pit bulls usually have. A lot of pit bulls are being used on Border Patrol right now. And Popsicle is the name of one pit bull that's on Border Patrol in Brownsville, Texas right now, and actually was saved. But they named him Popsicle because he was found in a refrigerator as he was being smuggled in. And they called him that because he was frozen and he'd been in there for a couple of weeks. So they named him Popsicle and trained him to be used as a Border Patrol dog. And he actually has the most, highest monetary seizure yet.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So. Very interesting. All right, we want to go to the phones now. Ann, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. What's going on?
I wanted to know what, as a pit bull owner, what is like the number one thing I can do to help educate people around me to help stop, BSL coming into my county or my area?
Okay, good question.
Right now, BSL, and the best thing you can do with your pit bull, whenever you're out, you need to have them leashed up at all times because people do not like to see an unleashed dog, much less a pit bull. Pit bulls in general have a very bad stigma. I do not, unless your local ordinances or laws say that you have to have your dog muzzled, don't keep him muzzled. Another really good thing is socialize your dog all the time. Introduce him to 1 or 2 dogs, a couple of people at a time, and then gradually move out and go into public with him and let him see more people. One of the good things that you can do is if your pit bull is very well socialized, bring him out on October 22nd next to Bongo Java, and that's our National Pit Bull Awareness Day here in Nashville, and there's going to be a lot of pit bulls there that are very friendly, just to raise awareness and educate people on the breed.
Okay, good ideas, I think, and that's a good question as well. We're going to come back in just a second. We have a lot more questions that I think folks are waiting on the line with, so we'll come back in just a second here on Morning Line to address those issues when we come back. And we're back on Morning Line. I'm Amanda Hara in for Nick Barris today, and I'm joined by Ronnie Van Sant. He is the founder of Pit Bull Awareness of Tennessee, and he's talking to us today about a lot of misconceptions about the breed. Of course, this conversation comes on the heels of a story that we actually aired on Monday regarding some new rules that could go into place in Springfield, which of course is in Robertson County. And now up in Springfield, if you own a pit bull, you already have to register it with the city. You have to send pictures into the city, and you have to tell them when you move. You have to have beware of dog signs up. Your dog has to be muzzled and leashed at all times. And also it can't be out in a fenced yard running free unattended. And if you want to put it in like an enclosure or something, it has to be locked.
Yeah, the enclosure has to be locked,
right,
and they cannot be tied down while in the enclosure. So it just has to be locked, so there's no way that the dog can get out.
Right, okay. And so Paul Nutting, of course, is the city manager. He's the one that is kind of backing this new ordinance to force folks who own pit bulls to actually pay a $50 registration fee to help fund the city's really strict, rigorous program on pit bulls. So we did extend an invitation to him to be here today. Unfortunately, he had a prior commitment, so he couldn't be here. But we do have a lot of folks that are waiting to ask questions of Ronnie, I think. We've got Janice there. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. What's going on?
Well, I have a comment just not only concerning pit bulls, but I think every dog should have to be licensed. And in order to get that license, the dog should have to provide proof, or you should have to provide proof of spaying or neutering, unless you're a breeder. And even a breeder should have limited litters. And all the money collected for that should go to support your shelters. That way we would keep from having stray dogs being thrown out in the street. So I think they're picking on the pit bull. Any dog can be mean, and that's my comment. So thank you.
Thank you, Janice. That sounds like a really good plan.
Really
All-encompassing.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair to every breed.
Yeah, the fair to every breed that's one thing that we really use for all animals. That's one thing we use really good, and that was a really good comment, that we use to fight BSL. We believe that every dog should be licensed and spayed and neutered, and that was a very good point about the breeders too. We use that all the time when we go to cases like these in hearings. We fight with that thing, right? With that, what she said right there, with licensing breeders. They need to be licensed. They shouldn't just have backyard breeders, because that's what hurts all dogs, not just pit bulls, like she said as well. But we like to license them and the number of litters that they can have, and that's a very good thing that she mentioned, because I forgot about that also, that's one thing we love to use when we go to these, because that's a better way to manage dogs in a community, because it can't be just one dog, because all dogs are aggressive sometimes, depending on how they're raised. It's a people problem, not a dog problem.
How do you think that someone would go about instituting a plan like what Janice just mentioned? I mean, it seems like a big undertaking. Is it possible?
It is a big undertaking, but one study that I've actually looked at is in Prince George County, Maryland. A big fight that they had is they tried to institute BSL there too, breed-specific legislation, and they found out that they were losing money because to keep one pit bull in a shelter for 1 year cost them $80,000. They were only making $50 a year off of people registering their pit bulls. So they were losing money considerably, because whenever they would pick up a stray pit bull, it would stay in the shelter. Like most shelters, they keep pit bulls. And normally a shelter would only keep a pit bull 2 to 3 days before putting him to sleep. And in Prince George County and most counties, they believe in humane treatment of animals, and pit bulls can stay in there for years. So.
$80,000, man, you could send your kid to college like twice over for that, maybe 3 times over.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money to keep a dog in a shelter, because they not only the medical care for the vetting, the spaying and neutering of animals, the food, and just the upkeep of the building itself and the location that the dog is being kept in.
All right, let's go to our phones again. Lee, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
I just want to make a comment on the pit bulls. This young gentleman made a statement. It's not the animal that is vicious. It's the owners that train them to be vicious. A pit bull's just like anywhere from your Dachshund on up. But it's the people. It's not the dog. It's the people. They, sometimes they don't feed them. They make them fight. They train them to be, rude and ugly. I think it's the people that need the $50 fee on them for doing this. They are, I don't know how to say it. They're just incompetent when they got an animal that is so loving. I have a neighbor that has 2 of them, and they're wonderful. They're wonderful. I mean, he doesn't go out there and teach them to be mean and beat them and, make them tear up things or anything. They are like any other animal. My suggestion to the ones you watch is the thinking animal, which is the German Shepherd, the Rottweiler, the Doberman. Now, these dogs think, and if they get it in for you, I've learned over 60 years, they are very vengeful. But it's the trainer. It's who teaches these dogs.
Well, we appreciate we absolutely appreciate your perspective, and of course it's obviously echoing what you just said. Why do you think, I guess on the heels of that comment, why do you think pit bulls get so much negative attention? I mean, what is the reason that they're getting a bad rap as opposed to other breeds? Do you
Well, let me focus on something else he said at first.
Okay.
I love that everyone is commenting that it's the owner, not the animal. But one thing he did say was about German Shepherds and Rottweilers and Doberman Pinschers, just like the pit bull, they get a bad rap for no reason. They're all very loving animals when they're raised. It depends, when they're born, it just depends on how the owner raises them. They're in the same category as pit bulls when it comes to breed-specific legislation. Those are some of the same dogs that are being discriminated against as well. Now, I think the reason why pit bulls get the biggest rap is because people fight them. There's been stories in the headlines of, like, one very good example is Michael Vick, when he had all those dogs on his compound and was fighting them and then tried to lie about it, and then all of a sudden, when he got back into his career, it was like nothing had happened. And that's what I think people see like that, and they see those dogs and they think they're vicious all the time, and they think every pit bull is going to be the exact same way, and I don't agree with that.
Okay. All right. We want to get to the phones again. Jeffrey, are you there with us?
Yes, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Doing fine. How are y'all?
Doing good. What's going on?
I wanted to mention an incident that happened several years ago in my neighborhood. Our neighbor across the road had a smaller dog and a larger dog of mixed breed, and their neighbor on the other side had a pit bull that they kept caged up all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, this pit bull, when he saw the dogs, he actually chewed his way through the wire fence, jumped over the little dog, and went for the bigger dog's throat. And he would not let go. They hit him over the back with a 2x4 trying to get him to let go, and they also they finally had to run over it with the car to get it to turn loose.
Wow.
But we learned later that this dog was trained for fighting. Mm-hmm. And I'd also like to mention that the most vicious dog I've ever had run-ins with was a Doberman. One tried to take my arm off one time while I was riding in the car. I had my arm out the window. But also, I lived with a couple one time that had two pit bulls. No, they were American bulldogs. And we raised infants around them. I mean, they were wonderful dogs.
Sounds like you could write a book with all the experiences you've had.
Ma'am?
Sounds like you could write a book.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting.
All right. Well, we appreciate you calling in today. But again, I mean, I guess it just depends on experiences, personal experiences that people have had, and maybe that contributes to the perception that they have for particular breeds.
Yeah, the pit bulls, especially since he said the pit bull, they found out later that it was being fought. From the beginning, when he was telling me about the dog, that they kept it caged up all the time, it was just out there and barked at the dogs all the time that went by, that sounded bad anyway, that it was just being caged up all the time, and that they found out later that it was being fought. It's just a bad situation for any pit bull, and that's what gives them the bad names. Another thing he said was about the Doberman Pinscher, that he said he got his arm bit while he had his hand out the car. The thing about those, though, when you have dog bites and you don't actually know the background of the dog, it's difficult to understand why that dog will bite you. There's no way to know. And what it sounds like to me, any dog that's going to bite has had a bad life and a bad experience and has been mistreated, neglected, or used to fight or trained very improperly.
It's almost like saying all people are bad because, one gang member shot you.
And that's another good analogy that I actually heard one of my friends say last night when I told them I was going to be on today. They said that when you consider men who are in abusive relationships, and men are the main offenders of domestic violence, do you consider every man on this earth an evil, bad person?
Yes.
You don't.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't. Well, not me, but we don't do that. We don't discriminate an entire subset of the population. Mm-hmm. Why should we do it to one dog? There's different types of dogs, yes. There are different dogs that are out there. Another great thing that I saw the other day too, a junkyard German Shepherd is not the same. It's the same breed as a pet German Shepherd, but it's not the same dog because they are completely raised differently. So they're going to grow up differently based on their experiences and neglect and the way that they were trained.
All right, good point. We'll be back here on Morning Line to answer many more questions that we have waiting on the lines. We'll be right back. And we're back here on Morning Line. I'm Amanda Hara, filling in for Nick Barris, and I'm joined by Ronnie Van Sant. He is the founder of Pitbull Awareness of Tennessee, and of course that's our topic today. We are discussing the breed, some of your personal experiences that you've had with them, and also some of the misconceptions that exist today about this particular dog. We've got a lot of folks that have been waiting patiently to talk with us, and I believe Leanne is joining us now.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm a groomer, so I see about every breed and mixed breed that's out there. And in my opinion, it's the little dogs you have to watch out for. Yeah. I mean, the larger dogs we see are generally really loving and affectionate and very well behaved. Mm-hmm. And in the media is part of the problem with the pits. No offense, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But you hear about what the pits do. You don't hear about the Chihuahua that about tore the kid's ear off. You don't hear about the Cocker Spaniel that cost me a week in the hospital over a bite. Wow. You know, you only hear about the larger breeds that are doing damage. You don't hear, the media doesn't, you know, talk about the smaller breeds that are doing it. But 90% of the time when we get bit or snapped at, it is by a smaller breed of dog.
Okay, well, good point there. And I just want to mention to Leanne and anyone else that's watching, you know, here at News Channel 5, we won't hear of a pit bull attack and a terrier attack and just decide to go with the pit bull attack. We genuinely just don't hear about those other type of dog attacks. But if we do, it's obviously something that we will cover. So most of the time it's just because nobody's telling us about it. So if you hear of something like that, of course, be sure to call us, because we in no way intend to discriminate against one type of breed. It's just typically what we find out about. And that's, I guess, the best way to explain it. I think Taylor is waiting with a comment. Are you there?
Yes, thank you for the show. I missed the very start of the show. I didn't know if the guest is a breeder of pit bulls as well, or just head of the organization. But I would agree with a couple of statements. One is that the owners have an awful lot to do with the behavior of any dog, and that any dog is subject to bite you. But I agree with the city ordinance that they're proposing, because there's a difference in a bite and mauling someone to death or tearing an entire face off. And statistics nationwide show that the deaths by dogs primarily is pit bulls and some Rottweilers. And pit bulls, in my opinion, have a DNA and history of far greater violence than any other dog, and for that one reason should be subjected to very serious restraints by cities, county governments, because they don't stop once they...
All right, thank you. First of all, I just want to address his first comment, and we should give folks a little bit of background on you. Not only are you the founder of the Pitbull Awareness of Tennessee organization, but you also run a small pit bull rescue. Right. You own a pit bull.
Yes.
And
yeah, it's actually, it started about a year ago. It was just originally just supposed to be an organization to educate people on pit bulls. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to be on here to further this. But I kept getting calls from different rescues asking me to place dogs, and pit bulls especially, because it was pit bull awareness, and it turned into a small rescue. I'm not a breeder. I only rescue dogs to take them off death row from shelters, and I also take human surrenders, which if somebody does not want their dog anymore, they can contact me and we can try and place that dog if I don't have space in my rescue right now. And we actually, if you want to visit our website, it's PBATN.org, or you can see us on Facebook.com/PBATN, and you can get a full background of my organization, Pitbull Awareness of Tennessee, and you can really understand what I do and what the people who work with me do.
Okay, and another point that Taylor brought up was that, and he made a point that he believes pit bulls are responsible for the most bites countrywide, and I think, what did he say? Rottweilers come in
Rottweilers,
second. And I think that he may be referring to a study that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention may have published, I think, in 2000. And are you aware of this?
Yes,
okay.
I am. The CDC also, in that same report, if you're talking about the same one, the CDC also advised that in that same report that they do say that reported bites and maulings are pit bulls and mainly Rottweilers, but those are the ones that are reported. Like the lady we spoke with a little bit earlier, she said that she was talking about the story about the Chihuahuas. There's also stories about Chihuahuas that have actually killed an infant. She was also talking about the Cocker Spaniel. They don't get reports about dogs like those, just like the media doesn't hear about those because people focus on the big dogs. The CDC also does not agree with breed-specific legislation and have a statement out there that they do not agree with it.
Okay. And just to kind of clarify, I'm going to read an excerpt from that report. The study was conducted from 1979 to 1998, and it found reports of 238 people killed by dogs over that 24-year period, of which pit bull terriers or mixes of those were reportedly responsible for killing about 32% of all of those people killed by dogs. And then the breed with the next highest number of reported fatalities was the Rottweiler and Rottweiler mixes. So there's still a large percentage of those fatalities that were caused by other breeds. And of course, I don't think that there's any recent study in the last 10 years that's been conducted.
There's actually no statistical data because it's very hard to pinpoint dog attacks. Because, like I said, like the CDC also, the report also said, that it's very difficult to name dogs that have attacked because people go based off media, what they think has attacked them, and that's been the case with most of them. There's actually a story out of Washington, D.C. recently that actually Washington, D.C. is starting to try breed-specific legislation because of this, but are trying to backtrack now because the media ran a story of a pit bull attack against a child, later to find out it was a golden retriever. And golden retrievers actually have a higher bite rate right now based on the AKC study that was recently done in 2010 based on the top 5 breeds that people buy and the amount of dog bites. And it was actually trying to be backtracked right now, and that's a misconception. People just see what they see on the media and say, oh, it was a pit bull.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go to Bethany, who's been waiting patiently. Hi, Bethany.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. My mother has a pit bull that my grandchildren sleep with, okay? My daughter has a pit bull that, her children sleep with. I have a pit bull out back that a blue heeler attacked, ripped his ear off, and bite marks all over him. And, I mean, these are non-aggressive pit bulls. My children, my 4-year-old granddaughter used to climb in the doghouse with him and try to sleep with him. I mean...
Okay. What's your dog's name?
Khan.
Khan?
Yeah, like Genghis Khan.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
coming. And then the other two are Brenda and Susie.
Oh, very sweet. Well, we appreciate you calling in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think Barbara's waiting as well. Barbara, are you there?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm like all the other women and men that has called in. It's really how you treat a dog. If a dog is going to, naturally they're going to take up for themselves just like a person. And I've got a friend that's got one, a pit bull, and he thinks it's a lap dog. Now, it may lick you to death at loving you.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And, that's what we tend to hear from a lot of people is that, they've only experienced really good things with their dogs.
Right. Pit bulls are very loving and caring. One thing I wanted to touch on that she actually said that they protect anyone like a human would. That's actually what... I'll touch on something that the gentleman before said also. I'll touch on that first. He said that he believes they're inherently vicious towards other dogs. It's not true. No dog is inherently vicious. What people commonly mistake vicious dogs and being inherent in their blood is because pit bulls are terriers. It's a pit bull terrier. And pit bull terriers by nature are are very high prey driven because they were bred to find small animals, and people don't understand that. Because of the way that people have adopted them as pets, and over time they become less prey driven, but there's still that in there. They're not inherently going to attack a small dog or go after another dog. That's not the case. What she said about them being territorial is that's any dog. They're going to want to protect their owner. They're going to want to stand by their owner. The way to manage that is very good socialization. It's good for a dog to want to be territorial, not to an extent where it's not where it's bad, but where they want to be with their owner. But if you socialize them properly, they won't try to bite anybody, and that's the main thing that people don't understand. Dogs need to be socialized no matter what breed they are.
Mm-hmm. And talking about, I think what you're trying to say is there is some instinct from the original breeding purposes.
Well, right. There's instinct from any terrier because that's what they were bred to do. Like Scottish Terriers, they were bred to stick their head down in a hole and dig out the gophers. Mm-hmm. That any terrier, the word terrier is earth. It was earth dog, and that's what they were used for, was to go into the earth and find small animals or hunt small animals. And people don't understand that they still, all terriers still have that prey drive.
Yeah, and I mean, just to touch on Jack Russell Terriers, which I've been around a lot just because I'm a horse person, and for whatever reason, horse people tend to have a lot of Jack Russell Terriers. And I can't tell you the amount of times I have seen those dogs down in the dirt looking for rodents, and they've come up with like blood all over their faces, and you know, that's what they were bred to do, is go in and get these rodents.
Right, it's completely natural.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to Larry now. Are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Larry.
Yes, I was a trainer for 3 years with the military, and I belong to a rescue. Anybody that's got a large dog, I don't care if it's a mixed breed, a pedigreed dog, that dog, when you get that dog, needs to be obedience trained. It needs to be on a recall action. And anyone with a very large dog, the dog will take advantage of you if you let him. But if he knows that he is obedience trained and he has to mind his commands, he is a safe dog. I'll hang up. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And I'll let you tackle that one real quick while I pull up a picture of my 90-pound dog who is not obedience trained and bosses me around on a daily basis. Go ahead.
Okay. I think all dogs should be trained and socialized. I do think that along with the ordinance, and go off what he said, I don't think to the extent of what he said, but I do believe that they should be properly trained and socialized. I do believe in a certain amount of obedience training, like sit, stay, down, and let go, and basically trained, just to make sure they're good dogs in public and good pets. Because like he said, if you don't train your dog properly and they're not obedience trained, they will take advantage of you, and they will think that they run you and you're part of their pack and they're in charge. They'll think they're the pack leader. That's very bad for dogs of any kind to be, especially small dogs. Like the lady that was saying earlier about the Chihuahuas, that they're the one who works at the groomers, they usually bite worse, but that's because they're lap dogs. They're not being socialized. They're small dogs, so people see them, just hold them all the time. They don't let them see other dogs. They don't take them out except just to carry them around in little bags and stuff. But that's why the bigger dogs are more lovable, because they see a big dog. They want people to see their big dog. They understand, most people understand, that a big dog comes with big responsibility, and I hope everybody understands that before going to a pit bull, especially because pit bulls take a certain kind of person, somebody who is very patient and has the time to actually train a dog. That's any dog really, but pit bulls take a special kind of person that has a lot of patience that can really understand the dog.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go now to Harold. Are you there?
Hey, good morning.
Oh, Harold, I just lied to you. Will you hold on for another second? We have to take a break.
Yeah.
I got real trigger happy with the buttons over here. And all right, we'll come back to you in just a second. Stay with us. Out and lick everyone.
That's one of the most important things. Dogs need.
All right, we are back on Morning Line, and I'm Amanda Hara filling in for Nick Barris. We've got Ronnie Van Sant joining us. He is the founder of Pit Bull Awareness of Tennessee, and of course, our topic today is pit bulls. And right before the break, I teased Harold on line 7 a little bit, and we're going to go back to him now with his comment. Are you there?
Hey, I'm here.
All right, thank you for hanging on for us. I appreciate it.
Here not very long ago, we had a stray pit bull come up to the house, which everybody's kind of leery of them, which I was myself. And I think a lot of people that's getting bite they don't know how to approach an animal, any dog. If you approach it the wrong way, it's going to take you as being aggressive. But this pit bull, I stood my ground. It come up. It smelled me. I got 2 young daughters. They come out on the front porch, and the pit bull got along with them. But to make a long story short, we kept the dog for about 3 weeks. It was the best dog you ever seen, and come to find out, the owners that lost the dog house raised it from a puppy with 2 small infants in the house. And that was the best pit bull that I've ever seen in my life. It was a very well behaved dog. And I think a lot of people getting bit, it's the way they approach him.
And then you had to give him back after 3 weeks of...
Oh, yeah, my daughters cried. We named it Rocky.
You named it and everything. Oh, man, that's too bad. Well, we appreciate you sharing your perspective with us today. And I want to touch on one other thing that I had read online, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but... and I think it may have been on like Wikipedia or something like that. But after the Michael Vick case, you know, they had all those fighting dogs to deal with. And who's the guy on like the Discovery Channel, the dog whisperer guy?
Cesar Millan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had read that maybe he had taken on one of those dogs and kind of like transformed it. Do you know about that?
He actually did. He's actually, there's a lot of celebrities that actually own pit bulls, and he is actually one of them. He took on one of the Michael Vick dogs, and the great thing that they're called right now, the ones that were very badly injured had to, of course, be put to sleep for their own benefit so they didn't suffer. But the amazing thing about these dogs, they've been adopted out all over the country, and there's actually this organization now called the Victory Fund, V-I-C-K, Victory Fund, for the pit bulls that were actually adopted out from that program. And Cesar Millan actually owns 3 of those dogs, and he's actually trained them, and he keeps them as pets now.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very interesting. Okay, and I think we've got Chip waiting for us. Are you there, Chip?
Yes.
How are you today?
Okay.
Okay. What's going on?
Well, I think some of these dogs are getting a bad rap because I owned at one time a Doberman who was like a pussycat. And in some ways, they've been working with Dobermans and getting some of the aggressive out of them.
Okay.
Because Dobermans are a very beautiful dog.
Yeah, they are.
And back when I was going on 30, I had 2 teeth that had to come out that had back-to-back double button hook roots. And they had to take it like a nutcracker and go in and break the roots up and bring them out with something like that.
And your Doberman Pinscher held your hand while you went through that procedure?
No, when I went home, he slept with me all night, curled up, just like a little ball, and it was a she.
Aw, well, very good.
She was just as gentle as my Cocker Spaniel is now.
Well, good. Thanks, Chip. We appreciate you calling in and sharing that story with us. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the events that you guys have coming up, and talk a little bit about that.
Definitely. The biggest event currently coming up is on next Wednesday, October 12th. We're actually having a Pit Bull Awareness of Springfield to help educate the community in Springfield on the pit bulls and actually talk about different ways to fight breed-specific legislation, not only in Springfield, but across the state and the country. That's one event we're having, and that's from 6 to 8. Next Wednesday at the Greenbrier Country Club Golf Course. Another event that we're having is we're showing our public support for the next vote in Springfield for the next breed-specific legislation vote. And that's on the 18th of October, and that's at 7 p.m. at Springfield City Hall. We hope to have a lot of people there. One other big event, the main event, because this month is Pit Bull Awareness Month, and it's also National Adopt a Pet from a Shelter Month. So we want everybody to go visit dogs, especially pit bulls, out at the Nashville Humane Association, Metro Animal Control, and your local animal shelter. And on October 22nd is National Pit Bull Awareness Day, and Nashville is having their event on October 22nd next to Bongo Java from 12 to 3, and it's actually hosted by Nashville Pity, another rescue organization here in Nashville.
Okay, very good. If anyone out there has a question for Ronnie about pit bulls or, another comment, of course, feel free to call us. The number is 737-7587. I think it's on your screen down there. Talk a little bit about, if you will, why you think so many of these dogs end up in shelters, pit bulls specifically. Is it because they're large breeds? What do you think it is?
Just like any dog, a lot of large breed dogs end up in shelters because people do not understand the breed before they adopt. And that's one thing I want to stress. Before anybody gets a dog, they need to research, see if it's a good fit for their house, and actually see if it would be a good fit. And a lot of times the reason why dogs go to shelters is because the people misunderstood the breed and didn't understand the amount of time and patience it took going into a dog. And so they surrender them because it just gets too expensive because of vet bills. They just aren't able to control them. They're not trained properly, and people just give up on the dog.
Is it true that particular shelters will not accept pit bulls?
It is. There are several shelters that do not accept pit bulls. I don't have a list of them in front of me. Most shelters that do take pit bulls, except humane associations. Humane associations will not put dogs to sleep unless it's a severe case of injury or health. There are many of the shelters around Nashville and Tennessee. They are high kill shelters only because they are run by city government. There's not funds available to keep a dog that long. And what happens is in pit bulls, when they get brought in, most shelters and city-run government animal control facilities, they will only keep a dog 2 to 3 days before putting it to sleep if nobody comes and gets that dog.
Okay. What is the process for your organization of taking in a dog then? Like if someone, can't take it to their shelter because they're not accepted there, or they don't want to take it to a high kill shelter.
Right.
What's a process for your organization, and are there other avenues out there for pit bulls if you're full?
There are. We're normally at capacity because we always have people trying to surrender dogs and we adopt them from local shelters. Our process to actually intake a dog, we require a vet reference. We require current shot records. If they aren't able to provide those, we do ask that any rescue or owner surrender, take them to the vet and have them checked before they bring into our rescue. And I'm pretty sure that most rescues are like that because they don't want to risk contamination for the rest of the dogs in case that particular dog has something. And that's a big thing that I very highly support is get your dog checked even before you take them to the Humane Association or any shelter. And if I'm normally at capacity at Pitbull Awareness. There are other organizations that I can keep constant contact with around Nashville and around the state of Tennessee. There's actually really good avenues in East Tennessee where there's East Tennessee Pit Rescue. There's Nashville Pity, of course, here in the Middle Tennessee area, and there's also Break the Chain out in West Tennessee. And they're actually very good rescues. I'm sorry, Break the Chain is actually in Cookeville, I do apologize. But they're actually very good rescues, and they're normally at capacity as well. But there's also people that we use that work with these organizations that can foster animals that we aren't able to intake at the time.
So it's kind of a big network. If you get in touch with one of these organizations, chances are they're going to try and help you find a place for your dog.
Right.
Okay, and I think we've got another caller waiting to ask a question. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good. What's going on?
I just want to say one thing. It's not the dog. It's the people that own the dogs. I've had a pit bull. Somebody stole it, but it was the sweetest dog I ever had. It was the ugliest dog I ever had, but it made it cute.
I wonder why someone stole it then. It was maybe they could just tell a sweet dog from a mile away. I don't know. I want to touch a little bit more on the ordinance that City Manager Paul Nutting is trying to pass in Springfield. And of course, the ordinance proposes charging a $50 fee for anyone who owns a pit bull in the city. There's already pretty strict laws. You can't take your dog outside the house unless it's leashed and muzzled. It can't run free in a fenced-in yard. You've got to have beware of dog signs posted at your house. You've got to register the dog with the city, provide them with pictures and any address changes that might come about. So it's already pretty strict. Yeah. Why do you think in Springfield in particular there's such a hypersensitivity to this breed?
I think within any small community, that's normally where breed-specific legislation happens, at small communities. And the common misconception is that lower-income people adopt pit bulls, and that's not the case. There's people like Michael Vick, which isn't a good example, but he had money and had pit bulls. There's also Bernadette Peters, Madonna, Cher. A lot of these people have pit bulls as well. It trickles through everything. I think the problem in Springfield is that a lot of people see the media and they see those reports about pit bulls and they see pit bulls out. In smaller communities, there's this misconception in lower income communities that people who have pit bulls are fighting them, which isn't the case. And I don't agree with that.
And Paul Nutting, of course, was invited to be on the show today, but unfortunately he had a prior commitment. But when we interviewed him about this story on Monday, he had mentioned a recent case in Springfield where he says some drug activity was happening in a house. Police went in, made some arrests, and then found several dogs. And he said that there was evidence of fighting, and he used that as a top reason as to why, he thought that this new ordinance was pertinent, although there was no mention made of attacks on people or anything like that.
Right. It's anytime you see a pit bull, if you've never seen a pit bull, which I understand that Paul Nutting has never actually met a pit bull, and if you see a pit bull, and most ACOs, animal control officers, if they see pit bulls, sometimes they're not going to like the way they look in a certain situation, that if they're not being taken care of properly, and immediately jump to say that they're fighting.
Yeah, and what's the tried and true way to tell if a pit bull is fighting? Because my understanding has always been that if its ears were clipped or something like that.
That's not the case. A lot of people like to clip pit bulls' ears for appearance purposes. I have two amazing rescues right now, Washington and Brutus, who are actually up for adoption right now, that have their ears clipped. They are the most loving dogs and companion dogs. The best way, and actually I think the only way to make sure a dog hasn't been fighting, first, check to see if they have any injuries on them, of course, but temperament testing, and that's one thing we use to fight BSL. In place of breed-specific legislation, we believe that dogs that are intake into cities need temperament testing, and there's varying different ways to temperament test a dog.
Okay, and again, if you can, do you have a phone number for your organization, or can you reiterate a way that folks can contact you if they have further questions?
Definitely. We can be reached at facebook.com/PBATN for Pitbull Awareness of Tennessee, and we also have our website at PBATN.org, and our phone number is 615-521-4596.
All right, we want to thank Ronnie Van Sant with the say it again.
Pitbull Awareness of Tennessee.
Okay, there we go. It's a mouthful. We want to thank him for being with us today, answering a wide array of questions and comments about this breed. Hopefully folks at home are a little bit more enlightened. And we'll be back here on Morning Line in just a second.